quickly, we're going to move into the next speech or talk for today, and it's going to be taken by our speaker from an international location. We have two internationally located speakers this year. So that means that we're going places at Elevate. Mrs. Laura Kinnard is, and I quote, an entrepreneurial-minded marketing strategist. End of quote. With over 17 years' experience, she is an expert in holistic marketing that includes both traditional and digital media platforms. She's a mother, a wife, and a lifelong teacher-student. She believes in paying it forward through teaching, mentoring, and speaking on key marketing, business, and social media strategies for companies, businesses, and brands in the new age. She's the founder and chief curator of Curated Growth. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the amazing Mrs. Laura Kinnard. Your hands together.
Hello. Honored to be here. I just only wish that I could actually be there physically with you. I've had the great opportunity to have visited in the past, and it was really just one of the highlights of my life, to be honest. So, of course, we're in a moment where we have a common experience in having gone through a year with a pandemic. And while I wouldn't imagine that all of our experiences have been exactly the same, it may be the one time that the whole world was at least sharing some common experiences and struggles. So I think it's really wonderful that we're here today and talking about the future and emerging stronger. And so that's what I'm talking about in my presentation today, is just looking at mindset and what impact that can have, because I did a virtual event in May a year ago. Of course, at that time thinking that maybe things would pass more quickly. And then it's hard to imagine that a year later, maybe the timing of that and this event is maybe more appropriate given how long everything did take, and we're still kind of coming through it. So at this point, people have become tired and their mindset has become weary, and we may have started to focus more on the negative. And so I am happy today to talk about how we might be able to look at how our mindset can impact how we emerge stronger, and in ways that we can do that and embrace what the new normal will look like. And I think there's some exciting opportunities. And so that's what we have to focus on. So with that, we can talk a little bit about this picture and why did I choose this as the cover for my presentation. What you're seeing here is a picture of the city that I live in, Des Moines, Iowa. So Iowa is in the center of the United States, and Des Moines is the capital city. And about 18 years ago, when my oldest son was only 12, we started to talk about skateboarding and how much we would love to have an outdoor skateboarding park. And there was much resistance, and the people that tried to work on that met a lot of resistance in trying to get this dream going. And so it was met with barriers. The city wasn't sure that they liked the idea. It seemed dangerous, seemed kind of silly since we have snow part of the year. Why would we want an outdoor skateboarding park? And for a long time, nobody really understood that dream. However, people pursued on. They didn't let their mind get, they didn't let people get their mindset changed and discourage them They continued to pursue that dream for 18 years. And what you see here is the skateboard park that came to fruition. And amazingly, we held the Olympic trials, the qualifying trials for skateboarding as the first time as an Olympic sport in the Olympics. And Des Moines, Iowa hosted the Olympic trials in May of this year, just outside of a pandemic, with a skateboard park that not only came to fruition after so much long perseverance, but it's actually the largest outdoor skateboarding park in the world. Not in the world, I'm sorry, in the United States. It's about third in the world. And we had people from all around the world for the first time ever being able to compete for a spot to show their talent in a previously unrecognized sport. So I wanted to really highlight that because we've been through a year where we had to persevere, and there were a lot of opportunities for us to give up, but also you have to keep your mindset strong. And I think this embodies a group of people that continue to see that vision through, even when they were faced with financial challenges and many other roadblocks. So that's why I chose that picture, and I'm really excited to see the future in Des Moines with this new installation. Okay, so let's get right into it. So as I mentioned, with COVID-19, we're seeing innovations emerging based on empathy for those around us, because we're sort of all in this together. So I wanted to kick off by saying, we may have lost businesses. Our businesses may have been challenged. We may have lost people. Our health may have been challenged. But there are innovations emerging, and a lot of them are based on the fact that we can empathize with everyone around us. Especially organizations in multiple sectors are applying concepts such as design thinking and systems thinking, and doing lean startups, because finances being what they are, starting as lean as possible, but starting and using human capital to problem solve quickly. And so our previous speaker already mentioned problem solving and how important that is, and using your human capital. And we can do that very quickly today compared to any other time in history. So next slide. So there's three really inspiring phenomena that have surfaced during this time of COVID-19. And they were highlighted, I think, really well in the article. And by the way, if you would like this presentation, you are certainly able to have that, and I gladly share it so that you can read some of the articles and dig into some of these topics more. But first of all, we can research, experiment, and innovate more quickly than ever. Now, depending on internet capabilities, I know that that's not equal around the world, but you're seeing today more than any other time that the world is interconnected through the internet. And while we can't solve challenging problems overnight, the engagement of companies and universities and governments and nonprofits and individuals all around the world in this time has shown that society can focus on tackling real world challenges very quickly, especially compared to any other time in history. So number two, there's also been an increased focus on empathy in solving real world problems. So while incremental improvements to existing business models are, very beneficial, it's also exciting to see entrepreneurs who are attempting to tackle these real world problems that are facing our society, and namely, of course, most recently, trying to solve the problem of COVID-19. But that's highlighted so many other issues with healthcare or mental health or making internet available to everyone, different ways to educate people. There have been so many problems that have happened because of COVID-19, but also that COVID-19 just highlighted some areas that needed improvement. And we've been able to come together to really face some of these problems in a time that really sees the interconnection of everyone around the world and working together to lift all boats. And then also, so that just kind of really segues into the third thing, is that we need to, and we can more than ever, collaborate for change. So solving these really complex problems is not easy. And it takes a diversity of skills, a diversity of knowledge, and I would say even a diversity of experiences, because we've all experienced things even in the last year differently. We're in it together in some of the same ways, but we've experienced it differently. And it takes being able to collaborate with people in order to have really big solutions that really investigate all aspects. And that means that you have to have diversity and different minds coming to the table. So, in some ways, people have talked about globalization is really what spread the virus, because we are all interconnected. We are traveling around the globe. We are, going from place to place. But at the same time, it's also globalization has caused co-creation with others around the world to help solve the crisis. And we're fortunate, really, that we live in a time where we do have the internet, and we're able to do things like this event today. I'm so fortunate that if I can't be there in person, that I have the opportunity to be here virtually with you. And this is a time like no other. We wouldn't have been able to do this. So, all right, next slide. So what we have to do during this time is to avoid letting our mindset during the crisis become a mindset crisis. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Of course, we've all been very focused on what has been happening, especially in our own personal lives. We become it's very personal. We kind of start focusing on our own struggles, and that's natural. It's natural to have certain things that you're worried about. Of course, it's impacting everyone in different ways, but we cannot let that really become a mindset crisis, because that just exacerbates the problems. And so we're going to look at why that is. So there's really 5 reasons why we have to avoid a mindset crisis. First of all, having a mindset crisis assumes that God is powerless, and it thus removes all hope and his power to impact our situation. So that means that we're just taking all the power back and thinking that it's only in our hands. And then we therefore remove, one of our biggest, not one of our biggest champion and our biggest hope that can impact our situation. So as soon as we have a mindset crisis, we sort of are taking the power away from God to help. The second thing is that it creates distractions that really diminish our capacity to focus on the solution. So the more that we're having this mindset crisis, the more that we're just distracted by all of the things that are impacting us, and focusing more on the problem than we really are able to focus on the solution. It also just leads to really energy draining depression. That reduces our stamina to stay the course. It inhibits our productivity. And, and it ultimately, when we as a society then all start to sort of feed on that sort of energy draining sort of negativity, it will ultimately affect the whole economic recovery. So it's really important, to have things like this today to lift people up and to do the work to make sure that we can get people into the positive mindset. So if you see someone around you, and how can you help, bring them back into a more positive mindset? Also, it really makes us psychologically unavailable to think creatively and to innovate. And more than any time than ever, right now is the time to think creatively and to innovate for new solutions. Okay. So, and if we are so focused on the things that are in our way, then we're really psychologically unavailable to be able to think creatively, think positively, and innovate. And then the fifth thing, kind of tying back to our need to collaborate during this time, is that it does cause selfish thinking, and again, that's not scolding anyone. It's really hard not to be thinking about, how are you going to make your bills? How are you going to, provide for your family? But I challenge you to try to not get into that mindset crisis that sort of lies to us and convinces us that there is no hope, or we're not going to be able to get through it, because and to worry and to just start worrying, because that sort of inward constant concern causes this selfish thinking, and it makes us really less likely to reach out to other people, to collaborate, to connect, to network, and to be able to support others. And the only way that we're going to be able to have an idea and then get that new idea out in the world is if we are connecting, and we're also helping other people support the ideas that they have as well. So there's really 10 types of negative thinking. And so we'll go through, you can see this list here. You can kind of read what some of those mean. But cynicism, hostility, filtering, so only noticing the bad, which makes you very unhappy. Polarized thinking, so thinking that one thing's perfect, it's either perfect or it's horrible. Jumping to conclusions, so assuming that something is bad. We can get into that mindset. Thinking always in terms of catastrophe, believing, falsely that a disaster is the only inevitable thing that's going to happen. Blaming other people, being emotional reasoning, so using your emotions to define what's real and what's not real. Fallacy of change, so thinking that people or circumstances have to change before you can be happy, rather than just embracing being happy and being joyful, even in face of the things that you're going through. And then also the heaven's reward fallacy, the type of negativity that assumes that there will always be a reward for hard work and sacrifice. And then when that reward doesn't come, so I'm not saying that there isn't going to be reward for hard work and sacrifice, but sometimes we think that it should come in our time. And when that reward doesn't come immediately, when we think it should be here, we can tend to just think that it's never going to come. And then we can become very bitter and depressed. So these are those types of negativity. And how does negativity impact not just the mind, but it can really impact your body, especially if you have struggled with, and like myself, I got the coronavirus in July, and I struggled, physically with it. And then realizing that your body ability to heal can be very impacted by also negativity. So negative thoughts and emotions, they're really the natural response to disasters and to heartache. So that's normal. But when we go through these extended bouts of negativity and negative thinking, it can really cause these serious health problems. Negativity can send your body into stress, in that fight or flight mode. And our body, they're designed to deal with stressful situations by releasing cortisol into your bloodstream. This, of course, makes you more alert and focused when something is happening that you need to respond to. So some stress can be good, but too much of it can be very detrimental over a long period of time. It can impact your digestion, your immune system, and also it can impact your abilities for your body to fight inflammation. And inflammation is the thing that I've mostly been struggling with as a result of coronavirus and having it. And so I can tell you inflammation can affect every part of your body. And unfortunately, negativity can really impede your body from being able to fight inflammation. And I had to give myself a talking to, and I've had friends who, had to come to me and say, hey, you've got to be positive. And it really helps to have people around you that are, that are helping keep you positive and surrounding yourself with positive people. So this is also why, in general, negative people will tend to be more sick than people who are optimistic. So, all right. And these are just some of the things I already mentioned: headache, chest pain, fatigue, upset stomach, sleep problems, anxiety, depression. All of these can be because of negative thinking. All right. So how do we overcome negativity? In some of the same ways that negative thoughts can create this these terrible, these neural pathways in the brain, positive thinking and positive self-talk can reinforce and become a good habit. And research suggests that happiness and optimism are more of a choice that are influenced, that are more of our choice than influenced by our circumstance. So while it's natural for us to be negative, be sad, be depressed when these circumstances happen, it's more not so much circumstances, but our own choice to be joyful and happy and optimistic. And so we can be that even through times that it's really difficult. So some of the ways that you can overcome negativity is to learn to recognize what is real. And sort of relating back to that list of the types of negative thinking, when we let our emotions sort of dictate how we see the world, we have trouble sorting out what are some of the real things that we need to tackle and problems we need to solve, and what are some of the things that our emotions are just speaking to us. So there's both good and bad in the world. The more you become a realistic optimist, so I'm not saying that we, only see the good, because there's both, but being a realistic optimist, the more you'll be able to focus your energy on the positive, okay? And also live in the moment. Focus on the task at hand. Avoid thinking about past mistakes or things you could have done differently, and also about future fears. If a negative thought enters your head, you can respond with at least 3 positive affirmations that you can think about immediately. Have those ready. So when those negative thoughts come into your mind, you can have the go-to things, those 3 things that you're always going to remind yourself of. So positive thinkers can control their mind and are aware of which thoughts enter their head, and they can take hold of those and really sort of chase those negative thoughts out. So be positive. If being positive is a habit, it becomes a habit, then you need to practice it. You need to practice optimism every day. Participate in activities that cultivate happy thoughts. Hobbies. Even during the time when people have been locked in, people have found new hobbies like baking and things that they could bring them happiness. So spending time with loved ones, meditation, engaging in uplifting conversations, maybe avoiding some of the negative media at different times when it just becomes too negative. Turn your negativity into action. So if you see things that are impacting you and it's making you feel negative, and you're experiencing those emotions, and that's inevitable. But positive thinkers will turn those negative statements into action. So, for example, a positive thinker may look in the mirror and see that she's gained some weight over the holiday season, for example, or while you've been locked in the house for months. And instead of dwelling on her appearance, be motivated to live a healthier lifestyle out of that. Okay. So spend time with uplifting people. Again, negativity is contagious and positivity is also contagious. So don't catch the pessimistic bug. Spend time around people that are looking at the glasses half full. All right. This is a quote from that I just thought was really wonderful. There's an article, obviously a very optimistic person. The statement is just that these days it's really easy to focus on the negative. And so the spread of COVID-19 obviously has had a devastating effect on economies and individuals. And the novel aspect of the pandemic, has a lot of unknowns that we're trying to, find our way through. But in spite of that climate, this author is saying he's really comforted by the fact that history of past pandemics and crises suggests there will be a recovery plan. And again, we're finding solutions quicker than ever before. So there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about that. And, as we say, necessity is the mother of invention. So it's not surprising that we're seeing new inventions and that you can be looking for ways that you can seize opportunities, new creations that can disrupt the way things have been done before out of crisis. And this author is saying that his optimism is really elevated because he is seeing massive creativity and initiative of individuals coming together to solve problems and innovating. So our mindset is critical to our productivity as well. So whether you're working for yourself, you've built a new business, whether you're returning to work or you're the owner of a business, there's all sorts of research that says that positive psychology and happiness is a key component of being productive. 75% of performance depends on our beliefs, connections, and how we manage stress. Only 25% is related to our IQ. So I'm going to say that again, 75% of our performance comes from our beliefs and our connections with other people and how we manage stress. And only 25% that comes from just how smart we are. So in laboratory experiments, economists found that happiness caused people to be 12% more productive on average. There's evidence that our brain works better when we feel positive and that positive emotions can invigorate us so we work faster, more effectively, and make fewer mistakes. So an entrepreneurial mindset is a no excuse mindset. It's a positive mindset and that doesn't have room for excuses. Entrepreneurial mindsets gives the power to our internal God-given talents rather than giving the power to those external forces that are really beyond our control. It allows us to focus on the solutions rather than on the problems themselves. So it's not that we don't notice the problems, but it allows us to focus on how we can solve them. It invigorates us and propels us to success rather than trapping us and impeding our progress. An entrepreneurial mindset versus a crisis mindset frees our mind to think creatively, to innovate, and to make it work. One of my favorite shows to watch is Project Runway, and Tim Gunn always says, make it work. So sometimes you just have to do the best with what you have in the moment and make it work. So also entrepreneurial mindsets cause us to give of ourselves. Even in times when we have nothing but ourselves to give, and that can uplift, it can lift all boats, including our own. So the more we can give to others, and even if that's just of our time, the more we can help lift all boats. Jim Rohn is an American entrepreneur and author, and this goes again back to that focusing on the solution, not the problem. So adopting a growth versus a crisis mindset. So a growth mindset, don't try to return to normal. So many people have said, how can we return to normal? When will things get back to the way it was? And my question for you is, what was so great about the way it was anyway? I don't want to return to to the old way. I want to look at all these new technology, the fact that we can do these virtual events and hybrid events. It may have been something that we had to do, but how can we embrace that, continue to make that better, and become the new normal, where we're able to invite people in from all over the world, where we're able to connect more, and look at the things that we may have been forced to do that we want to keep doing and do better in the future. I'm excited about those things. So see opportunities rather than barriers. Embrace change and adopt new models so that you can survive. Capitalize on trends that we see. Some of them that have been coming along for a while, some of them that have been accelerated because of the pandemic, and some trends that are new. But capitalize on those trends and innovate so you can emerge stronger, not just survive, that you can emerge and thrive. And so look at some of these predictions. I've been talking about predictions for 2030 for 2-3 years now. Some of them have been impeded. Some of them have been accelerated. And then there are some new ones. I don't have this in the slide, and I'll pause for just a moment. I want to talk about a quick list of trends that have happened because of the coronavirus. Globalization is going to be redefined with a stronger emergence of social capitalism. So, we've kind of seen global ideas sort of taking the back seat because we're all sort of stuck in our own worlds. And now, but it's become very evident that in order to solve problems worldwide, that we have to work globally. So many of the things with healthcare and internet that affect us all, there's a stronger emergence of social capitalism. So capitalism and globalism that focuses on how we can work together to solve problems. There's also going to be an acceleration of the digital transformation. We're already seeing that with things like some of the technologies that are allowing us to be able to connect or have a virtual event, etc. That's not going to end. That's going to continue forward in education, healthcare, all sorts of areas. There's a use of on-demand workforce, and that's going to continue. So we can embrace technology, and that enables us to have on-demand workforces where when you have a project, you can ramp it up really quickly with a workforce and scale it back as well. There's new platforms for delivering healthcare, and also, via telemedicine, via telehealth, and even mental health opportunities. Supply chains will fragment, but then they're going to reconfigure themselves into new supply chains. And I'm hopeful that means with 5G internet and more focus on creating online internet systems around the world, that we will be able to have new supply chains, new markets that we can sell our products to, new people we can connect with, and for abundance. And then also the definition of workplace is going to change. Here in the United States, many people are not going to go back to the office, or they're doing hybrid where they're working at home and they're working in the office, or they're able to travel and work in periods so many months out of the year, and then work somewhere else so many months out of the year. So we'll be able to go visit other places, work in other places, work with people around the world. Industries will be forced to reinvent by upskilling and reskilling their workforce, especially with technology. So that's affecting airline, retail, hospitality, healthcare, education, construction. Everything is being impacted by new opportunities, new skills. So be on the lookout for that. And what new skills are you going to need? There's going to be change in workforce habits. We won't all have to be in urban areas. We can actually change, urbanization, have opportunities in other places. And there will continue to be very rapid innovation in order, in some cases, to keep our businesses afloat. And finally, again, and tying back to this idea of mindset, new mindsets will drive the future success. So with rapid change means that we also have to embrace change with our mindsets. Okay, so we can get back to the regular presentation, but I just wanted to point out some of those new things that are emerging that we can be on the lookout for. And we really have to innovate in order to survive and to recover and to thrive on the other side of the pandemic. All right, next slide. So if we don't innovate and change, we're not going to be able to exist. Our business won't be able to move forward. This is a slide actually that I created prior to the pandemic, probably almost 3 years ago. I pulled this quote out. So you can already see that companies were challenged to innovate. It's just that we now are seeing an acceleration of that. All right. So next slide. I think I'm going to go ahead and just push forward. We talked a lot about some of these trends, so I'm going to go on to the next slide. And just remember that Peter Drucker outlined 3 ways that we can innovate. So you can go on to the next slide. Product innovation, obviously making new products is one way to innovate with new attributes, taking advantage of new technology. Next slide. Social innovation, so new ways of doing things in order to meet our social needs. So how do people want to purchase things in the marketplace? How have the consumers changed? How can we innovate to better interact with our consumers? Next slide. And then also managerial innovation, so that we're also can create new processes, new ways that we can manage, being new, better efficiencies. Different ways that we can deliver our products, which everyone has seen that challenge recently. All right, next slide. And just keep in mind here that constraints are good for innovation. I know it seems like there's so many barriers right now, and how am I supposed to innovate? And I don't have a lot of capital, but in many, many cases, and 145 summary of 145 studies have shown that constraints on creativity and innovation can actually help us to be more creative. We will challenge ourselves to do more with less. We will push ourselves to find new solutions when we don't have all of the luxury of time and money. So this is a time that your creativity can really be at an all-time high. Again, I mentioned Project Runway and how much I love that program. They give them a limited budget and a limited amount of time, and the things that come out of them from a creative aspect pushes them in ways that they maybe never would have without those constraints. Next slide. So there's an accelerated pressure for commercial retail and food in particular to make it work. They were already challenged, and those industries are responding and finding ways to make it work. Next slide. So here, and I'll go ahead and leave you. This will be something that you can, go through. As I said again, I'll allow you to have. There's a whole look at all kinds of trends and the ways that food and retail, at least in the U.S., have been expanding, and innovation and having new models to survive, but also to thrive. In new lease models, new ways that they're delivering food. So there's a lot of really hopeful, cool things that are happening in a lot of industries. Next slide. So design thinking is one of the ways that we can think about how we interact, how we can creatively problem solve, and how we can interact and think about the people that we're delivering our services and our products to, in order to help us be more creative and solve problems. So there's some great videos there, some great resources, and I'm going to leave it for questions at this point. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for the amazing talk. I hope we're taking notes, and I hope, I'm sure that some people have some questions here. If you have a question, please, if you've written it down, you can pass it on to the lady with the mic, or you can just stand up and we can ask your questions. Right? Anyone with questions? Because I will always like to start. Okay, so I have a question here that was given to me. So the question is this: if you were to advise entrepreneurs in a developing country like Nigeria, right? What do you think is the most important factor for business growth in this new normal? What should we be focusing on? What should be our core focus? If there's one thing we could change, right, in our attitudes and mindsets, what should that thing be as entrepreneurs?
Okay, wow, that's and I think that I'm going to review a little bit of some of the things that have already been said, and that is, first of all, you have to focus on what your skills are and what you can do. So when it comes to mindset, thinking about what you can do best, what you're able to do. So there is there's an overlap between what's feasible, what's viable, and what's desirable. Okay, so when you are thinking about a new business idea, even now in a time when it might seem more difficult to be able to start something, if you can look at the minimum viable product, the minimum thing that you could do with your talent, your skill, and the knowledge that you have, and that someone not only would like but would pay for. And what's that? Sometimes we tend to think so big about the things that we want to do in the future, and there's nothing wrong with that. We should always have our sights on what's our next thing. But sometimes we have to take a step back and just say, okay, what's the minimum thing that I can start with now that would be feasible for me to do, right? That I can do, that would be, viable in terms of people would be willing to pay for it, and that is desired. That that there are people who that's something that they could really use and need. And so looking at, in the moment, what is it that I can do with the resources that I have? And then also really getting those ideas out in the world. So I'd say the part two is share your idea, what you're trying to do with other people, because someone is going to know of a resource, someone else that you can connect with, somebody that needs your product. And if you are not putting it out in the world and confidently saying, this is what I have, this is what I know, this is something that I can share. If you keep that to yourself, then you're never going to know the opportunities and the whole stream of events that could follow if you are sharing that idea with the world and having the confidence to go for it.
Thank you very much for that. Finally, I got this question. I'll try to phrase this the best I can. In cultivating a happy, positive mindset, what should our reaction be to cynics and naysayers? In terms of, so the social media space is such a, would I say, violent digital space. You put your ideas out there, you put this type of things out there, and you expect some type of response, and you get all sorts of responses. So, should we be engaging people more because there are some people that feel engage your naysayers, engage those who think differently from you? Or should we just ignore them and say, okay, the evidence of the results will prove us right at the end of the day? What should be in cultivating this mindset?
So it's interesting that you bring that up, because I often share with some of my students a video from a director at a program in the United States, and he goes through this whole thing about innovating and how we're all able to be creative and innovate. And that the biggest thing that kind of kills that is the naysayers, the critics, the people that will say it's been done, or you can't do that, or that's ridiculous. If you look at someone like Elon Musk, a lot of the ideas that he's pushing forward have a lot of people that will say, well, that's ridiculous. That's preposterous. That could never happen. That's too big. And so you really have to do your homework, be confident in your idea, be solid in it. It's not that you don't want to go to trusted consultants and advisors who aren't just naysayers, but they're people who will give you an honest feedback. And you should take that if you trust them and seek them out and make changes. So it's not about not listening to anything, but if someone is a naysayer just based on wanting to be a naysayer, and there's many of them out there, and you're right, if you put it out in the world, you're going to get a lot of critics back, probably more of that than people that are being positive, especially right now. So you kind of have to just be confident. If you want to engage and tell someone that's being constructive, no, I hear what you're saying, but this, and this is why I've researched and I know that it's going to work. But beyond that, I think you have to kind of shut out the criticism, keep focused on your solution, and and kind of know when you should just sort of walk away from some of that, and really only engage with people who are there to give you constructive feedback, that want to see your idea succeed, and that are being, honest advocates of your success, not just a naysayer for the sake of just wanting you to not succeed.
Mrs. Laura Kinnard, thank you very much. Please put your hands together for her. Such great answers. And I'm sure that if anyone else has questions for you, I'm sure they can send it to your social media handles, and she'll be... Oh, we have one more. I have one more from...
And I'll try to be quick with my answers. So I know we have lots of other people to speak.
All right, my question is not a huge one, just talked about constraints for innovation and being good for innovation. And then you talked about the feasible, viable, and desirable. Can you connect those three a little bit more and sort of talk about how that connects to the constraints and being able to innovate better, especially in our environment where people have a hard time? Because someone just asked me the question about where we don't have all, I'm not Elon Musk, I'm not Tesla, I don't have all those big things they have. So can you just add a little bit more to that question?
Yeah, so Elon Musk is probably a really bad example right now, since he's sort of, riding the high tide. But Elon Musk went bankrupt at one point, literally ran out of money. And many of the things that he was doing were pretty doomed. So it hasn't always been that way. But, but he's probably not the normal example, right? So I think that there is a point, and I'll be honest, when there's so many constraints that it may be very difficult to be able to move forward with anything, right? So there can come a time when there are so many barriers and constraints, and maybe people have felt that, that it's just like, I can't figure out how to move forward. And I can tell you that I've done things as a side hustle. It didn't mean that I was going to give up on my dreams. I've had to, go work the job that I maybe, didn't love. I have looked for ways that I can take my skills and knowledge and talent and transfer it to another industry, maybe help another business or company out because that opportunity was there. And I would say that we have to do what we have to do to survive, right? But that shouldn't be the end of your dream. And so if you get to that moment, just keep jotting those dreams down. Keep working on your business model. Keep connecting with people and telling them your idea, because things are going to open up. You are going to bump into that person, and so I just want to say that I understand that you're going to come back at times and say, yes, but the constraints are so high. But don't shelve them. Keep looking at them and working at them every day, even if you have to do something else in the meantime or alongside it. And then the other thing is, I would say, look at what is feasible and viable that would still be desirable, even if it's just a fraction of what your whole idea is. You can say that you were going to do this great, you wanted to build a website. It's going to have this, platform. You're going to be able to connect with people or sell on it or whatever. And you've got this really great idea, but it turns out that right now it's not going to be feasible for you to do that. So what are the ways that you could take that same product, and get it out into the world? It could mean that you're making a Facebook page. It could mean that you're doing a smaller version of what you want to do. Or look at a different way that you can deliver it. I mean, restaurants and have had to look at, how can we deliver food for people when they can't come into our restaurant? That's just one small example, but they had to pivot. They had to change. They had to look at the way that they could deliver their product, their knowledge, and what they had to offer in a new way. So at the very end of the presentation, there's a challenge that says, talks about the 4 P's of marketing, which is product. So you could create a new product and change that about what you do now. Maybe there's a new product you can add on that you never thought of before, but right now that would be a better product for you to sell. Some people started making masks, some people, looked at new products that they could capitalize on. The other thing is new place. What's a new way I can deliver my product that I didn't use it to deliver before? Because right now I have to do that. Or can I promote in a different way? Maybe I don't have a really big budget, but I can find new ways to promote my product. Okay. And so that exercise takes you through thinking about your existing business and what are the ways that you can change how you promote it, what your product mix is, how you're distributing your product, and you can change things in order to be able to have maybe to survive, but maybe it actually opens up a whole new channel that you never thought about before.
All right, thank you very much. Just one more question. The questions started coming as the answers you were giving just led to more questions. So this, let me try to read this. So statistically, right, lots of people have ideas that are dumb or unworkable. And also some of us have some ideas that, in quotes, I don't want that, hope nobody takes that the wrong way, in quotes, dumb and unworkable ideas. How do we know that this thing we're pursuing, right, in trying to pursue it and make it work, how do we come to the realization, understand within ourselves that, man, this just wouldn't work?
Right. So you want to fail fast, right? You don't want to keep making something work that isn't workable, right? So that comes down to customer discovery. And, you do open yourself up to the naysayers, but, doing some informal surveys, asking people that are trusted advisors, getting that feedback and being realistic and really looking at that feedback and saying, okay, the feedback I'm getting is not really supporting this being a viable opportunity, or at least at this time, right? And then pivot from that. That doesn't mean that you have to end it. I actually don't think that there's any dumb ideas. I think that sometimes you have to be realistic about competition. You have to look around and say, is there a value proposition? So, maybe it's a great idea, but it's the wrong time for it. Maybe it's an idea that you can listen to that feedback and say, oh, okay, if I change that about it, it would be different. Maybe I can take that idea and to a place where they don't already have a solution. Maybe I can change it just this little bit in it, and it will be viable. Very rarely is there an idea that I would just call completely dumb or unworkable. There just may be changes that need to be made about it, or it's maybe not the right time, and there's something else that you can do, in the meantime. But you do have to listen. You do have to put it out there. You do have to be realistic. And the fact that you are just a person that thinks of ideas and have had the guts to put it out there and actually pursue it means that you can pick up another idea. Ideas and ideation is wonderful. Some people can come up with ideas all day long. What it really comes down to is someone who is able to make it work, who is has the tenacity to do that, and also knows when it's time to change and move on to something else. Because executing on the idea is usually you can have an excellent idea and have a terrible team and a terrible ability to execute, or you can have an okay idea, but if you're a person that can push forward. There's great ideas that people have that never get off the ground because they weren't able to market it. They weren't able to work it. And so you'd be surprised at how many mediocre ideas actually can become very successful because of the person that's pushing behind it. But you also have to know when to fold your cards and move on to something else.
Round of applause for her. Thank you very much. We've kept you on this. We thank you for engaging us. And we do believe that we'll have you some other time engage with us again. Thank you very much. A round of applause for her.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. That was an amazing session. So key thing, remember, keep your mind right. Because if you do, anything is possible. So like she said on the final point, for those of you who started thinking to yourselves just now and say, perhaps my idea might just be dumb because people have been telling you that this idea not just makes sense. No. Guy, say everybody don't do and finish. No. What she said was, it's possible that your idea is good, but your team is wrong. It's possible that your idea is mediocre and you have a great team, tenacity, and it will still fly. So solve the other things around, get feedback, and if it is actually unworkable, not dumb, right? If it's unworkable, be quick to move on to something, pivot the idea and move quickly, and you achieve great success in this season.